Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady. In 2023, here's a cool little fact for you. The U.S. added more solar capacity than ever before at 32.4 gigawatts, surpassing any other energy source in 2023, this is the first time renewable energy sources outpaced fossil fuels since World War II. And of course, it's been warm here in Iowa. The sun's been shining. And so naturally, everyone is starting to think of solar. And so obviously the sun, shines all year round. But when it gets warm, we usually think hot stuff, solar. That's when we start thinking about it. So to join us on our solar journey, and we're going to basically figure out what's crap, what's real, where are we with solar. Ryan Warren, the founder of QSTN, is here in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here because the solar industry is, I'll be honest, I probably know a little bit more about it than the average person just because I'm kind of a nerd. Uh-huh. But I also know enough to know it's a bit confusing. And so, home shows, I see tons of different solar providers that seem to be offering the same thing, but maybe not. So we're going to get into all that today. But Let's talk about this first, being a little bit wide scope, and then I want to talk a lot about Iowa. Let's talk about wide scope. In the U.S., how much solar energy are we actually producing? So, obviously, we have a lot of solar energy just falling all over the ground everywhere. How much are we actually capturing and producing in the U.S. as of now? Yeah,
I don't have that stat on the top of my head, but a stat that I just read the other day is that in 2023, 53% of all the new electricity generating capacity in the U.S. was solar.
Yeah. So okay. Wait. Whoa. Over 50%?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Of the new generating capacity. Yeah. So it's definitely a trend and a direction that the U.S. and Iowa is moving in terms of energy.
Do you know how we compare with other countries? I don't know if you have that data, but I would naturally assume this seems pretty fast. So are any other countries pouring resources into solar like we are?
Yeah, I also don't have those stats on my head. But
I don't imagine you would, but I just wonder if there are any, because it seems unusual that we're moving this quickly.
Yeah, we're making progress. And there are a lot of things that are driving that progress here in the more recent years. That we're happy to dive into. Yeah,
well, I want to get into that, but let's talk about some Iowa factoids first, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'm also going to adjust my mic down a little bit here. We were talking about that earlier. So do we have an advantage, at least just in Iowa, with solar it sounds funny because the sun is the same everywhere, but your angles and topography, I know all this stuff does actually matter a little bit. So do we have any advantages or disadvantages here in Iowa that maybe other states may or may not have?
Yeah. Iowa is a pretty special place for a lot of reasons. It's great for solar. Iowa has a pretty good solar resource. So I think we're ranked somewhere in the mid-30s in terms of you line up all the states in terms of solar resource per square meter per day. But we have about 70% of the solar resource that Arizona has. And Arizona would be ranked the number one state in the country for solar resource. So we've got a pretty good solar resource. Another thing that we have going for us here in Iowa is pretty favorable net metering, meaning we can connect a solar PV system to the grid and offset energy at a pretty good rate, the cost of energy at a pretty good rate. There's a ton of applicable incentives that apply to Iowans. So the Inflation Reduction Act offers tax credits. There's a base tax credit of 30%. There are adders for energy communities and low-income communities, both of which exist here in Iowa. There are REAP grants available through the Renewable Energy for America program. Those REAP grants are applicable to the agricultural sector and small businesses located in rural areas, which describe a lot of us Iowans.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Iowa has a sales tax exemption for solar equipment that helps bring down the installed cost.
Wow.
So there's a lot of incentives. And then there's a lot of open space. So we have a lot of rural areas where, depending on whether you're looking at the roof or the ground, there's a lot of places we can put solar. It takes space. So yeah, for those reasons and others, Iowa's a great place for solar.
Yeah, you answered, well, this is one of my questions is, and I should back up a little bit because this is what your company does. You could do like consulting and solar and all that stuff. So that's why you're in here. But that was one of my questions is, well, actually, I want to get to that in the future here about like, where do we put this stuff? Because it's, it takes up some considerable amount of space. But Arizona? Like, I mean, again, it goes back to heat's not necessarily solar energy, right? But what is it? What is it about Iowa that is more similar to like solar production to Arizona? Like, what is? Do you know why? Like, we have more than our fair share of solar production capacity here.
Yeah, our location on the Earth makes a big difference. But generally speaking, when we're looking at the U.S., the Southwest has the most solar resource. It's more sunny, so to speak. Cloud cover, snow cover, things like that also impact our solar resource here. And so, yeah, there's a handful of variables, but generally speaking, Iowa's in a pretty good place for a solar resource.
That's interesting. So, like, how does it compare with wind, like, as far as, like, in Iowa? Because I think Mid-American, I'm from Des Moines, so this is the stat I hear.
Yep.
But Mid-American is often talking about, like, the numbers seem to fluctuate, but it's like between 60 to 100% of our state's energy is like wind generated at certain times.
Yep.
So I don't see, like, I see the turbines all over the freaking place.
Yeah.
I don't exactly see giant solar farms. So compared to wind, I'm assuming solar is lagging in Iowa.
I think it can be hard to compare like that. In general, my opinion is that the future of our energy will be a mix of a lot of different sources.
Yeah.
And it kind of depends on where you're at. So Iowa's great for solar. Iowa's great for wind. We're not so great for hydro. If you go to the Northwest, there's a lot of hydro.
Yeah.
And so it kind of depends on where you're at, what makes most sense. And so I see it as a mix, wind, solar, et cetera. Mm-hmm.
That is interesting. I never thought about that because, okay, so we are already generating a lot of wind energy.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people don't know. See, I told you, I'm a nerd. A lot of people don't know that the reason we generate a lot of wind energy is because, I mean, these are all related, but is because we happen to be in a weather, like there's like a jet stream or an airstream that goes over Iowa, and there's a similar one over Texas. And this is why we have all the turbines set up here. People are like, why didn't the whole country put them out? Because they don't have the same wind stream we do.
Right.
This is why you go to Minnesota, it may actually be colder if you look at a thermometer, but it feels colder in Iowa because we have those higher winds.
Sure.
So what you're telling me is that in Iowa, currently, energy's kind of cheap.
Yep.
But it could get cheaper because we have kind of the best of both worlds with natural energy production.
For sure.
So that's kind of significant. That's really significant. So energy costs, as long as like nothing gets in the way of commerce, energy costs should theoretically keep coming down.
Sure.
Does that does that scare like energy companies maybe a little bit?
I think it's a great thing. I mean, we can offer a product that may save you money.
Right.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of benefits to renewables. Being renewable is one, of course, great benefit and sustainable for the planet. Reducing your risk on escalating energy costs is another. Because you own your energy production equipment now.
Right.
Saving money over the life of a system on your energy costs is another great benefit. Yeah, lots of great benefits, including cost.
Is there a future where energy companies, I know Mid-American probably doesn't want, or any energy companies may not want that to be, but is there a future where energy companies don't need to exist, or will they always need to be kind of the central energy distribution hub of some kind? I don't imagine within 100 years at least everyone can completely be off grid. That doesn't seem rational to me.
Right. Yeah. And off grid may or may not be the best situation depending on your goals and priorities. That's another thing when it comes to solar or renewables is the design of your system depends on what you're looking for. If it's purely economics, being interconnected to the grid is probably the way to go. If it's complete energy independence, then maybe an off grid system is something you're interested in. But that comes at the trade-off of cost often and battery backup and all kinds of different considerations. But I do think that the landscape is changing there. I think we have a lot of work to do to continue increasing the sustainability of our energy production. And I think it's going to take a team of companies such as us, as well as utilities and energy production companies to meet that demand and ultimately get to a more sustainable place.
So you said something interesting there, which is depending on your goals. Because if you listen to a bunch of the ads, it's like your goal should be to do panels and your goal should be to. So are there situations where people should not want to be off grid? Like I would naturally assume if the investment is, not like $1 billion, everyone should want to be off the grid. Generate your own electricity. That's what, I would naturally assume that would be something everybody would want. So why wouldn't someone want that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. If you're interested, you could be interested in solar for a lot of different reasons. One goal might be purely economics. If it's economics, connecting to the grid in a net metering situation where you can offset energy that you're producing when you're not using it is really important. Maybe you want to decrease your risk in escalating energy costs in the future, so you want to own your own equipment, in which case you still would probably want to be net metered. Maybe you want energy independence. If so, we need to look at battery backup and as a way to completely disconnect you from the grid, because one challenge with solar is it only works when the sun's up. And so, but we live in our homes and we work in our businesses day and night. And so we would need some way to have power when the sun's not up, or if it's cloudy or storming or something like that. And so really depending on what you're looking to get out of it drives the design and the approach for solar. So yeah, there's lots of different reasons and lots of different designs.
You mentioned something interesting there, which I think I would assume if it's a sunny day and I lose energy, which happened during the derecho. I still don't know how to pronounce this word, right? Do you know how to pronounce it? Derecho?
Derecho?
I don't think anybody knows. The weather people are just lying to us. They're like, I don't know what this thing is. I'll just call it a derecho. Yeah. It sounds wrong to me. But during the derecho, we'll just go with that. A lot of people lost energy.
Yep.
If we lose energy and the sun's out, wouldn't I be generating energy in my house?
It's a super great question. And this is a common misconception of solar, that when the grid goes down by code, your grid connected system will also go down. It's a term called anti-islanding. And the reason for it is safety. So if the grid is down because of a storm and we have people out working on the grid, what we don't want to do is backfeed that grid with systems that are producing power in the event you're producing more power than you're using. And so it's a safety element. If you have battery backup, there's ways to disconnect and island your system and operate on battery backup. There's new technology coming out, or we've heard of, that islands when the grid's down, but oftentimes when the grid's down, it's in the middle of a storm, and so it's not sunny anyways. So in the case of a derecho where a storm goes through, power's out for a few days, maybe something like that would help you during the day. But generally speaking, battery backup is the way to go if you want to have power when the grid's down.
Basically, the way it works is they're just shoving a bunch of energy into this grid, and then they just shove a bunch of energy into this grid, and then your meter lets some of it in, is essentially what's happening. So they don't want to essentially electrocute workers if everyone's, like what you called it, backfeeding.
That's right.
So if everyone, let's say my neighborhood goes down and half of the neighborhood has solar generating tiles and someone's working on a transformer, they don't have any way to shut that off. It's going to electrocute them. So that's why everything shuts down. So that's why you need a battery backup. Got it. So if you want to be off grid when a storm knocks all your stuff out, you can, but you would just need to put the battery backup system. And I'm assuming that system comes with for lack of a better term, an electric shutoff thing at the meter so that you don't backfeed the system.
Yep. All electronically controlled in that way.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of cool. So can we realistically, I hear people talk about this a lot, which is you can sell energy back to the energy companies. First of all, can you do that? And then second of all, How realistic is that? Are people
Yeah.
actually selling money back? Do
Yeah.
they actually make reasonable money per? Like, do
Yeah.
you actually see a bill from your energy company saying, "Well, we paid you"? Like, is this a real thing?
Yes, it is a real thing. I would also say, but it depends on what utility you work with.
Right.
And that drives what the net metering agreement looks like. When you're net metering, you're effectively connected to two sources of power. Your solar system is one source, the utility is another source. So in the event that you're consuming exactly what you're producing, there's no energy exchanged with the grid. In the event that you're producing more than what you're using, you're putting energy back on to the grid. And in the event that you're using more than you're producing, then you're pulling energy off of the grid. So how the financials look in that exchange depends on your net metering agreement. One common way here in Iowa is that it's quote unquote netted out on a monthly basis. So at the end of the month, your bill will show the net energy that you used off of the grid, and you will pay for that energy. So in a lot of instances, you're offsetting energy at the retail rate, which is really favorable. In some instances, you will get paid what's called the avoided cost, which is effectively the rate at which it costs your energy provider to generate energy. They'll give you what it costs them. But again, it depends on the utility, it depends on the situation. But yet, net metering, it really is one element that really drives the financials of a project.
That's interesting. Okay, so yes. Does it appear though, like, do they actually pay you, or do they just give you like their version of Amazon credits?
Yeah, you get, it depends. So generally speaking here in Iowa, it would be a credit, and that would be netted out each month. At the end of each year, you pick a month. There's some variables in there. Then your credits go to zero. So typically, you would not size a system that would generate more energy than you're using on an annual basis. So you wouldn't want to necessarily put up a power plant, so to speak, and sell energy.
So you're not getting a check from Mid-American or any of these companies at the end of the year.
Generally, no.
Yeah. If maybe they're going to put up like, show. I don't know if you remember Showbiz. I think it's called Chuck E. Cheese now.
Okay.
But maybe we get a ticket system where we can go to the counter and pick out a prize at the end of the year.
There you go.
I think that's something I'm going to run for governor, and that's what I'm going to do.
Check or a stuffed animal. I love it.
Yes, that's super good.
You pick.
I love that. So like this Tesla did not succeed because Tesla did not invent EVs, right? They did not succeed until they were actually able to build some practical value. Like, they were fast and cool. But the big thing I think everyone always overlooks is range. Like, duh. Like, which makes me crazy because there was a car I've been wanting to get. It's a Volvo. But like, their EV range is still like Tesla's had like an over 300-mile range for like years.
Sure.
And Volvo has apparently been working on this longer. And their range is still not as good as, which I don't understand why they can't get the range up. It seems to be some secret sauce. But are we at a place where economically solar does make financial sense to people? Or are we still at the place where it's mostly like not quite there yet, but it's a good sales pitch for solar companies? Like, where are we at now?
I would say generally speaking, well, in short, it depends. Generally speaking, solar is your cheapest option for energy over the life of the system. But what the financial picture looks like varies on a project by project basis.
Oh wow, it's that
completely depends.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, completely.
So this
depends.
is not if someone's like, "Oh, everyone can save money," but that's not true.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, okay.
There's a lot of variables.
Some
to
fine
think about.
print there.
Yeah. So some variables to look for or things to think about when you're trying to figure out whether or not you have a good project or not, or some potential for a lot of cost savings. So we would look at specifics around the utility. How expensive is your energy? The more expensive of energy that you're offsetting, the more valuable the solar production is.
Makes sense, yeah.
What your net metering agreement looks like, what we just talked about. There's a lot of site specifics that we would think about. How much energy to use. Generally speaking, the bigger the system, the more you can, cost efficiencies there are, and the cheaper it is per unit of capacity. How much roof and ground space do you have?
Oh, good point.
What's the type, age, and condition of the roof, if it's going to be a roof mount? Do you have any shading obstructions on your site that we need to be thinking about or modeling in? Are there any homeowner association or historical area restrictions for solar that comes into play sometimes? Yeah,
restrictions for solar?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. So if I'm going to, you mentioned homeowners associations, which for some people, as I went to a recent conference and someone's like, I really trust my homeowners association. Someone else was like, mine's awful. And so this is a very polarizing issue.
Yeah.
So you're telling me some homeowners associations or even districts or areas like restrict the use of solar?
Yes.
Even if I'm putting it on my own freaking roof?
Yes.
They may be restricted. Why is that?
I think it varies. I think one...
You're gauging like, I don't want the HOAs coming after me.
Sometimes aesthetics come into the play.
Really?
Sometimes the HOA will say you can put up solar, but it needs to be not street facing or not visible from the street, things like that. So historical buildings, there's regulations around there. So, you can't be able to see it. Things like that to consider. So, yeah, site specifics. And then available incentives is another big one. So, generally, the 30% tax credit is available, or there's a direct pay option now with the new IRA if you're a tax-exempt organization. Whether or not you're located in an energy community or low-income community, that could be upwards of another 10%. 10% each for a total of another 20%. Wow. So that could be a 50% tax credit.
There are a lot of variables.
Yeah, for sure. Are you a small business located in a rural area, or are you in the agricultural segment? If so, these REAP grants cover up to 50% of the project cost, capped at $1 million. So there's a lot of grant money there available. Do you have tax liabilities as a business to depreciate the asset against and save even more on your taxes? So there are so many variables that it really comes down to case by case. When it comes to the financial picture for a solar project, we see paybacks ranging from less than a year if you're in a particular situation where a lot of these incentives stack on top of each other, upwards to 15 or 20 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
it could be 15 to 20 years before you ever get your investment back.
It could be.
Depending on the scenario.
Depends.
Especially if you have giant trees blocking your roof.
Yeah. It doesn't work very well in the shade. Yeah.
Right. Right. That's interesting because I think that we're always told that, it'll just pay you back immediately. And, we hear a lot of that. Like, you won't pay anything. Like with tax credits and subs, I hear radio ads. I hear all sorts of ads about this. With all the tax credits, with all the subsidies, with the metering, you can sell energy back. Like you won't even pay anything at all. So you're telling me that in some cases this may be true, but in many cases your mileage will vary.
Yes. Yeah. There's lots of things to think about. There's lots of messaging out there. I've seen some of those same messages. You see things like the government will pay you to go solar.
Right. I've heard that.
There are tax credits available. So if you have a tax liability...
That's very different than the government paying.
That's right. There are grants available, like the REAP grant.
Yeah.
So there are instances where there's funding available and there's opportunities to depreciate. So you just have to be a little careful. I've also seen solar is free. If you can stack all of these incentives on top of each other, maybe the incentives will add up to most or all of the installed cost of the system. But another thing to know is a lot of these incentives are reimbursable or in a form of a tax credit. So there's an upfront cost and you're reimbursed. So it's not necessarily free. So you got to be a little careful there. In certain situations where interest rates are lower, there could be a situation where you can finance a system and your monthly payment to the bank is lower than maybe your monthly payment to the utility.
Oh, so it's a lot of like accounting kind of. Yeah.
And there are situations where you can wrap origination fees and such into the loan, and you can cash flow positive right away. And so, the net cash flow might be positive, but you still have to take a loan, not necessarily free.
Yeah.
There may be a situation where a solar provider is offering a power purchase agreement where they own the solar system.
Oh, and weird.
Yep. And
so they're leasing your energy to you, kind of
they're selling
means of energy production.
That's right. So you would get two energy bills, one from the power provider who owns the solar that's installed on your site, and another from your utility. And so in that situation, the solar system doesn't cost you anything, but you don't own it either. There's a lot
of tricky accounting, essentially, is what it is.
Yeah, my advice would be to just ask a lot of questions and know that there's not a lot in life that's free.
And my advice would be bookmark this episode and go play it with your solar provider and say, what do you think about this? Yeah. And if they're like, I don't like that episode, kick them out because Iowa podcast, we never get anything wrong. So this does go into there are a lot of terms. There are a lot of accounting. I don't want to say tricks, but because marketing people, we always want people to buy. But be very, very careful. Do your research ahead of time. Write down what your goals are. And be very, very clear, because there are a lot of reputable providers too.
For sure.
But there are probably a lot of out-of-country or out-of-state fly-by-night people that come in. And we saw that with like some roofing companies during the derecho that would come in. They were out of state. There were little pop-up things. And then they just took your cash and ran. We saw that, happen. So, know the provider. Make sure they're reputable.
Yeah. There's lots of great companies out there working in solar and the energy space. Ask a lot of questions. If it sounds too good to be true,
it probably is.
Yeah. Dive a little deeper into it.
Yeah, nothing's free. Earlier we talked about the HOA and the solar panel, and I will admit they do look ugly. Like I'll admit also, like
it's getting better.
Yeah, it is getting better. But I do admit, like sometimes I go through a beautiful field here in Iowa, and there's just these black panels everywhere over it, and I'm just like, that kind of sucks. Like I don't. Maybe it's just me, and maybe I sound like this old curmudgeon-y, like there's these stupid kids in their solar panels. But is there? Like the Tesla solar? I hate to go back to Tesla, but they are kind of the big behemoth in the space. The Tesla solar tiles is this like the wave of the future, like hiding solar tiles everywhere, like putting them on every roof, and essentially roofing becomes solar tiles? Like, is this kind of the future where every surface, at least it's a roof, like it's just kind of there everywhere, but you just don't notice it? Is this kind of where we're going?
We think a lot about making solar and renewables more desirable. And that means just simply better than your current situation. So again, depending on what you're after, it can be much cheaper, it can be less risk, it's more sustainable. So lots of those things. The aesthetics certainly come into play. I think Tesla has done a really nice job of making their products desirable. So if you think of the Tesla car, you don't necessarily buy that EV because it's what you should do or the socially responsible thing to do. It's just better in a lot of ways.
And it's cool. It's better. Yeah.
It's fast.
It has cool tech.
Yeah. There's not an engine up front, so you've got more storage, two trunks, so to speak. Yeah. There are lots of elements of EVs and solar that Tesla has done a really great job at making it more desirable. Simply better, not just the socially responsible thing.
Yeah.
And so as it relates to solar, Tesla does have a solar shingle. They look super great.
They look cool.
For sure. I will say that the standard crystalline module is getting much better looking. There's things you can do like moving roof vents and such to make your installations look super square and consistent in that way. A lot of the polycrystalline modules in the past have kind of a blue look and a not so consistent. So the monocrystalline modules now are all black. A lot of times the frames are black and all the components in the module are black. So it really helps the aesthetics in that way. So continue to make progress in that way. I still think there's some work to do.
Are the solar tiles, I'm assuming, unless Tesla has this patented and locked down, I'm assuming we're going to start to see that technology more and more common. Like, working in solar panels. Like my brother-in-law has a optic mounted on his gun.
Okay.
And former military guy,
Yep.
and he has this optic, and it has little mini solar panels on it, because when you're outside shooting, it's just slowly gathering a little bit of energy, so you don't have to replace the battery as often.
Okay, cool.
And it's crazy. And are we going to see? Is this basically everyone's going to start developing tiles and hiding solar though, or? Like these solar tiles, do they take a hit in energy collection? I don't know. Like, are the traditional panels better, and the aesthetics, you do take a little bit of a hit, but it looks cooler? Is there a trade-off there?
Yeah. Like a lot of things in life, I don't know that I would say they're better or worse. They're just different with some trade-offs.
Yeah.
The performance of a standard commercially used monocrystalline or polycrystalline cell versus the solar tiles are a little bit different. The aesthetics are different. The costs are different. So it kind of goes back to, again,
what's your goal?
What's your goal? If your goal is to have something super aesthetics as your priority, and economics are maybe second or third in line, maybe.
Or your HOA bans panels?
There you go.
So would an HOA allow these things, whereas they would ban, or certain districts, whereas they would ban the panels?
It depends.
Yeah. Okay. So it goes back to your HOA might not just want the visual aspect. Talk to them. Get maybe the solar tile thing works for you.
Yeah.
Got it. It's kind of a Rubik's cube of solar is what it is. Like you adjust one thing, something else changes to blue, and you're like,
yeah. I don't believe there's a one size fits all for solar. It totally depends. So and a good provider will be able to help you understand that picture.
Right. So last few questions on this. The panels. We often hear, or we have heard, that the panels are great because they can harvest all this electricity, but they can't be recycled. And so it's like, I feel like the sustainability thing is always a wild goose chase, because you feel like you're doing one thing right, and then right around the corner, someone's telling you you're an evil person for trying to save the planet because you cannot win. So
yes,
are the panels now recyclable? Do we have processes to recycle them? Are they changing the panels? Where are we at on that?
Yes, they are recyclable. I think as we continue to move forward in the future, there will be more options for recycling. A lot of solar is relatively recent, and so there's not a lot of solar here in Iowa that's coming up on the end of life, and so recycling hasn't been as big of a thing yet. But as we move forward in the future, so roughly 70% of all the solar in Iowa was installed in the last 3 years. I think we have roughly 600.
Wow, that's fast.
Megawatts of solar here in Iowa, and I want to say. Per SIA, roughly 70% of that is in the last 3 years. So,
Goodness.
So solar, I would argue, has been more recent, and there's a lot of drivers for that. But I think as we move forward in the future, there will be more options. But the short answer is yes, there are options to recycle. Another thing that comes up around this topic is the carbon footprint of the manufacturing of these modules.
Oh, good point. I didn't even think about that.
The rule of thumb, depends again on who's manufacturing and what kind of practices they're using. The rule of thumb is about 3 years. So it takes about 3 years of operation.
So you're offsetting that in 3 years.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right. And the life of these systems, we typically look at 25-year lifespan. Most of the equipment is performance warranted by the manufacturer for 25 years. And so that's what we would deem the life. Often they are expected to last longer than that, maybe upwards of 30 or more years, but we would typically look at the life of about 25 years.
So when someone like snobby kid comes over to your house and they're like, "Did you know solar panels are bad for the you can say, actually 3 years and they're better, kid.
There you go.
Go read a book.
There you go.
Okay, I lied. Last question, real quick.
Okay.
Solar tech, you were telling me this before we were talking. It's like super old. When was it invented, and why all of a sudden 70%, 3 years, Iowa? What changed?
Yeah, so solar has been used for decades. I think it was around the 1950s that Bell Labs was producing solar for use in space applications. And so solar has been around for a while and commercially used for decades. As we just talked about, though, a lot of the solar in Iowa and in the country has been more recent. And I think that's driven by a number of things. One is the cost of solar has come down significantly. So roughly in the last 10 years, the cost of solar has come down 50%. So it's half of what it cost 10 years ago. Also, there's a lot more incentives, and incentives are increasing. And so the Inflation Reduction Act added a bunch more incentives. The REAP grants, they just increased in terms of percent of project cost offset and the amount of money that they're willing to fund. So there's more and more incentives at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level. The cost of energy is going up over time. So what we're able to offset with solar becomes more valuable. Because now you're not paying for a more expensive unit of energy. Depending on the segment that you're in the residential segment, the historical data shows about 3.5% increase on a year-over-year basis. In the industrial segment, it's north of 6% a year. Wow. So cost of energy is coming up. And then I also think, generally speaking, sustainability is becoming more integrated into our culture. And there's a lot more focus on living today in such a way that doesn't impact tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. That makes a lot of sense. Because one thing, like I said, I'm a nerd, and I will admit, I should probably disclaim this. I am a Tesla shareholder. It's not like I own a ton. I can't influence any decisions. But I think it would be super freaking cool to have a Tesla parked in front of my house, generating energy off my Tesla solar tiles. And it's charging overnight because I have a power wall.
Yep.
I think that sounds really cool.
For sure.
To never pay for fuel. But if you putting on your accounting brain, and I'm in a full solar area, my roof gets a lot of energy.
Yep.
Is that actually going to can I tell my wife that's going to save us money, or is that kind of a stretch?
Yeah, it depends.
Are you just going to cut the end of this?
The engineer in me will tell you it depends.
He said, of course I should do it. We're going to save tens of thousands of dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan Warren, founder of QSTN. What a worthless interview that was. No, just kidding. My goal was to get a solar roof out of this. Ryan Warren, founder of QSTN. Thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. How can people reach out to you? What's the website? How can they get in touch if they have further questions?
Yeah, you can look us up online. Q-DSM.com is our website. You can reach out to me via email, rwarren@q-dsm.com. Give me a call. Happy to help.
And we'll get that all on iowapodcast.com. So if you're driving, don't worry. I'll put that all there. Thanks again, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.